Hello guys, Samar on this side, back again with a new tutorial video. In this video, we are going to set up our Flutter code base for writing our first Flutter app. In the last video, I shown you about a little bit about the Flutter, and from today's video, we are going to set up the Flutter environment and other necessary tools to download and write our first project and first code in the Flutter. So let's start the tutorial. So you have to first switch to that website flutter.dev, and here you have to first click on the get started. Then choose your operating system. According to your operating system, choose here. I use Windows, so I choose here. When I recording this video about March 2023, this video will be come around April 2023. So here now the Flutter 3.7 version is present. So if you look through this tutorial after 1 year, maybe new version of Flutter will be arrived there. So just download the available version. Okay, so that will be same for every time. Okay, so just download that respective zip file. So after when you download that, it will take a lot of time. It is 1.64 GB, and depending upon your net connection, it will take a lot of time. When you download that zip file, when you unzip the zip file, then you can see that folder. Maybe that folder name, not only the Flutter, that will be associated with the Flutter current version name. You can rename it to the Flutter or keep it as it is. This is totally on your choice. And when you open that, there is a lot of files. You don't have to understand any of the things right off now. So what you have to do, go to the bin and copy that path. Okay, so I copied that path, and you have to go to the environment variables, edit the environment variables, that options. Go to the environment variables, select the path here, not the upper side path, that under the system variables path, and click on edit. Here you have to click on new and paste it here, and you have to click OK. I already added that before, so I not clicking OK, but if you doing it first time to set up that environment for the Flutter, you have to click on OK. Okay, and after that you don't have to do anything associated with the Flutter folder. Then you can do one thing, you can run command prompt as the administrative mode. So I zoom it for the better view, and you have to write where Flutter dot. So after adding the environment variables and starting the command prompt, if you write the command, and you can see that output, that means Flutter is officially mapped up with your environment variables, and you can use Flutter. But wait one second, there is many more steps left, because only downloading the Flutter SDK in a fresh machine does not allow to write Flutter codes, because in the last video we see that Flutter helps you to write multi-platform apps like for Android and for iOS. So we have to configure for the Android as well. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to install some of the software. So we have to first install the Android Studio, and then we can download the Visual Studio Code as well. So don't worry, if your system does not support the Android Studio, you don't have to write code and all of the operations in Android Studio. It is only have to download and install, because when we install the Android Studio, the Android configuration will automatically install in our system. That's for the reason we can install Android Studio. So after that, you can write the code in the Android Studio or use other code editor like Visual Studio Code. That is upon your choice, but download and install is mandatory for the Android configuration. So for installing the Android Studio, we have to go back to the browser, and you have to come that link developer.android.com/studio. By the way, that link will be present in the comment section of the video, so make sure you follow that. Okay, so here you have to download the latest Android Studio. So currently in March 2023, it is Android Studio Electric Eel. Maybe if you look that video after 1 year, there will be new version of Android Studio will become. Don't worry, all the version having the basic things is same, so you can download the latest version as well. When you download the Android Studio, the installer file will be downloaded there, and you have to install it through next, a simple step there. Okay, so after installing the Android Studio, you will have to come to the program files that is present basically in the C drive. So when you come to the program files, you will see the Android folder will be appearing there. Okay, so under that Android folder you can see the Android Studio folder, and under that Android Studio folder just do it very much securely, otherwise the configuration mess will be happen. So look at sincerely. So what you have to do, under that Android Studio folder you have to go to under the bin folder, you have to copy that and you can paste it here. And after that you have to do one more thing, you have to go to the JRE, then under that bin you have to copy that path. I copied it and I also paste it here. Now we have to add that two links under the environment variables as well, so that that will be mapped up with our environment variable. So what we have to do, we have to run the same process, environment variables, edit the environment variables, and environment variables path under the system variables, edit, and here you have to do one thing, you have to add new, and then you have to add that two links. So I just copied it from here and you can add that, and after that you can add that second link as well. Okay, after that you can do okay. We already started the terminal, so we have to first close it and start the terminal again as run as administrator, and yes. Now one more thing is remaining, but before that we can do one thing. When the Android Studio is successfully installed, we can successfully check Java version. So here you can see OpenJDK and other version is showing, that means Android Studio is successfully installed, and Android Studio helps us to install Java. So that's the beautiful thing of the Android Studio, that's why we have to install. And after that we have to do one thing, let's go back to the documentation, and when you come here to the documentation slowly, so we done that process where flutter.dart successfully. Now before running Android Doctor, what we have to do, you can see here in the Android Doctor, when run you have to first accept the Android licenses. So if you come here, you can see here Android Studio, all of the things that we already done here, and you have to agree to the Android licenses. So make sure you have a Java version of 11 installed. So let's see what our Java version, so I think that's 11.0.3 OpenJDK version. So okay, good to go. And then Android Studio version is already hired. So what you have to done, just copy that, start the command prompt and paste it here. Okay, it will take some time to accept the Android licenses, because it is a mandatory step to start with the Android development through Flutter as well. And then you can run Flutter Doctor. Here you have to check one more thing, Android Studio, if it is state, connected device, HTTP host availability, Chrome if it is installed in your system, it will check. You can ignore that. Visual Studio developed for Windows, if you have installed already the Visual Studio code, it will show that, because it is a different thing. Android Toolchain, it is required for developing apps in the Android devices, and obviously the Flutter channel, that is the most important thing. So that means your Flutter is installed in your system successfully. So after that you can download one more thing, because you have already installed Android Studio, but I know in most of the cases if the system is not comfortable with Android Studio to run that, we can use another alternative for Android Studio. This is the Visual Studio Code. So we have to go to that website, code.visualstudiocode/download, that is link in the description, check it out. Select your respective operating system. So for myself this is Windows, and I just select that, and the Visual Studio Code will be installed. I already installed Visual Studio Code, it is very much easy to install. The executive file will be download, and then you have to double click on that to start the install. Then next. Make sure when you doing next there is a checkbox present about add to path. So make sure the checkbox is filled, because what happened, that actually mapped your system environment variables to the Flutter installer executive files. So you don't have to add anything in the environment variables manually. So just keep in mind that. And after that, when the Visual Studio Code will be installed, what you have to do, you can just search for Visual Studio Code from here, so that will be appear. And you can do one more thing here, so you can make a folder here. So I make the name as tutorial, and under that folder I go to the top line and I write cmd to run the command prompt. And here you can do one thing. You can open that folder in Visual Studio Code. Just write the command code dot. Okay, so when you write that command code dot, that the Visual Studio Code ID will be open. My Visual Studio Code is somewhat configured manually, so that's why that beautiful theme is showing. But when you first install Visual Studio Code and open it, the theme will be not that much beautiful, because there is a classic design theme will be there. You can customize all of the Visual Studio Code theme in the Visual Studio Code official channel. They are showing many more customization, how you can customize Visual Studio Code, so you can follow that up. But after installing Visual Studio Code, you can do one more thing. You have to first go to the extension section and you have to write here Flutter. So here you can see here the Flutter will be so there, and you have to install it. Apart from that, you have to install one more thing, that is Dart. So you have to install that Dart as well, and nothing package will be required as of now. If it is any required, I will be tell you in the next video. So that's it for the Visual Studio Code. For the Android Studio Code, you have to do you have to first run the Android Studio Code. So I first run the Android Studio Code and show you, because Android Studio Code running takes a little bit of time. When you open the Android Studio Code for the first time, as usual, the theme will be not looked in that way. I blurred here some project because that is my some of the secret project and some of my office projects, so I can't show you in that video. So you have to first do one thing. When you open the Android Studio Code first time after the install, the project will be not so there. There will be some block will become, and there will be a section for the plugins. Okay, so when you come at the plugins section, so when you come here, you have to go to the marketplace and you have to search for the Flutter. So you have to install that Flutter. I already installed it, and you can install Dart as well. So you have to install that too first, and then you have to create a new project. So you have to click on the new Flutter project. Here you have to provide the Flutter SDK part. So what's the SDK part? You will remember when we put the Flutter SDK after the unzipping, that the Flutter folder. So that's the Flutter folder that we unzipped. We have to just copy the path of that Flutter folder. We have to copy that path and we have to paste it here, or you can select from here from the explorer all of the things of the file and folder structure. So you have to do that part. So it is currently pointing that folder, Flutter folder. So yeah, then you have to click on the next. Here you have to give the project name. I give here the project name as tutorial first project. For now you can uncheck that as well, and you don't have to think about the organization or other types. Just keep it as it is. When we make project, we will be configured as per our choice. Then you have to click on the finish. It will take a little bit of time to create your first Flutter project. One thing I will recommend, when you make your Flutter project, try to make from the Android Studio. I know in most of the computer maybe Android Studio not supported. I don't say that running Flutter code from the Android Studio. I just say make your Flutter project from the Android Studio, because Flutter Android Studio UI is very much friendly for making a new Flutter project. We will run the code from the Visual Studio Code as well, but for making the Flutter project, I personally choose Android Studio. You can follow that path. That will be very much easy for you. Okay, so when you create your first project in the Flutter, then you have to click here and click on that project. So that's your file and folder structure. We will understand it later how the file and folder structure and all of the things is denoting about. Don't worry, we will learn it step by step from the next video. So after creating your first project in Android Studio, you have to do one more important step. That's why also we install Android Studio in our system. We also run code in the VS Code, so don't worry, but there is some configuration needed in the Android Studio. For that, the Android environment will be set up very much peacefully in our system. Okay, so after you're creating your first project, come to the tools section, and here you have to click on the SDK manager. In the SDK manager, here you can see SDK platforms. You have to just install some of the Android version here, Android API level. You don't have to install all of them, so just install Android Tiramisu, Android 12L and Android 12.0. After that, you have to just check it in that way. So you have to just check here if that is not checked. After that, go to the SDK tools, and here you have to install just the mentioned thing. You have to install Android SDK build tool 34RC1. You have to install Android SDK command line tools, Android emulator. You can install it as a optional Android emulator because we are not going to use the Android emulator. Android SDK platform tools. Make sure you install the mandatory three things: Android SDK build tools 34RC1, Android SDK command line tools, and Android SDK platform tools. What you have to do, you have to just check it. Okay, so you have to just check it if it is not checked, and when it is checked, just click on the apply and then okay. I already installed it before, that's why the apply option is not coming. When you doing for the first time, the apply option will be come, and then you have to click on apply. Okay. So that will install some of the command line tools and some of the API labels, so that you can use the respective API label. Okay, so after creating that, you can close that, and let's wait for the install of that packages we selected. So it will take a bit of time because it's a very much huge file to install. Okay, so we created our first project in the Android Studio. I personally prefer Android Studio to run the project, but I know in many systems that Android Studio is not supported. So for that, I will show you how to run Flutter project from the Visual Studio Code. So from the further tutorial, I will run the project from the Android Studio. So if Android Studio is not good for your system, you can run the code in the Visual Studio Code that I am going to show you how to run. So we have to first go to the folder, under that folder, okay, to open the Android Studio. So opening the Explorer, and that's the file. So that's our project, tutorial first project. Here you have to write command prompt in the top line, and you have to do one more thing here. I personally prefer here in that way. Yeah, so what you have to done, you have to run code dot to open that folder in the Visual Studio Code. Okay, so as you can see, our project is run in the Visual Studio Code, and the main entry point of our project is main dot dot. You don't have to understand anything as of now. I will understand you everything from the next video. So let's run it and let's see if that works or not. So if you have Android phone and you don't have dot activated developer options till yet, see any YouTube video or any YouTube short how to activate developer options in any Android phone. It's a very much 1 minute step, and when the developer option is activated, go to under the developer options and activate our option name as USB debugging. So that is mandatory for that. When you see any short or any video on YouTube, that will be clear. It's a very much easy task. And one more thing, for mirroring your Android phone, you can use a new software. So that's name is Visor. So you can write here download Visor. So yeah, so go to here Visor downloads. You can choose your favorite operating system and you can download the Visor. So what is that? It is a phone mirroring device. So what happened when we make any tutorial, it is very much beneficial because after installing that software, I just write Visor here. So when I open that, so it is recognize my Android device, and I just click here to view the device. So what happened, my device is now mirroring, and that's one of my app that is deployed already on the Play Store. You can use it if you want. So it helps you not to check from your physical device again and again. So it is a very much useful tool. You can use it, otherwise you can see the changes from your physical device. So what I have to do, I have to resize it. Let's see if I can do it. Now what we have to do, we have to open the terminal. So I don't know why the terminal option is not showing here. When you install Visual Studio Code for the first time, the terminal option must be shown there, but if the terminal is not showing, you can use your existing project terminal, that from where we open the Visual Studio Code. So after I prefer the Visual Studio Code terminal. It's a very much easy terminal. So yeah, thing here you can see my Android device is showing here. Okay, so if I click here, that's the thing is appearing. So if your mobile device name is not appearing here, so you can search for your mobile name and make sure it is connected through the USB and developer mode is activated. And when you activate the developer mode and connected your phone through the USB, there is a option for the allow, and a hash string will be present. Make sure you allow that, otherwise the phone will not connect it to your system. And after that, if the phone is not connected to your system, just click here. So here, if any device is not recognized, here it will show no devices. So when you click here you can search your mobile name, your mobile model name. So here I search and it is already appearing. So yeah, so that's the mobile version is recognized. Now for running the project, you have to run that command flutter run. It will take a little bit of time to run the project on Flutter in that device. So one more important thing to tell you, when you run that command, make sure your internet connection is stable, because there is some Gradle download and Gradle build is going on. For that, stable internet connection is required. So when we use Android Studio from the next video, so I will show you how you can manually build the Gradle, so you don't have to wait, or you don't have to mess up with the Gradle build or about the network related problem that happens most in my site actually. So that will be helpful from the Android Studio, but in Visual Studio Code that option is not available. So what happens when you run the project, the Gradle build and download operation is happening at that point of time. So running your project at that first time is taking a little bit process, so make a patience and let's see what happened. So guys, we run our first project in the Flutter. Here you can see many logs is present. You don't have to remember any one of that. I will tell you what thing you have to remember and what not. So that's our first Flutter project. Here you can, when you tap here, that number will be increasing accordingly. So yeah, so now I am going to tell you about the two most important concepts of Flutter, that is hot reload and hot restart. I described here about the hot reload and hot restart in my first video of the tutorial series. So if you not see that video, the link is coming in that I button. Please see it. I told there detail what is hot reload and hot restart. But for now, I want to show you practically how the hot reload and hot restart work. So for the hot reload, let's do one thing. Here the heading is coming, Flutter demo homepage. I just change it YouTube tutorial video. Okay, and in the comment I come here, and here I press smaller. Hot reload is performing, and here you can see YouTube tutorial video is changed. But here you can see that 22 the state has changed, but we started from the 0, that is not changed. So for that we have to do the hot restart to restart the app from the scratch without terminating the project. So for hot restart, what we have to do, we have to write capital R in the terminal. So here you can see it is showing performing hot restart, and within some seconds the result will be shown, and you can see that's coming 0 because it is started from the scratch. Guys, we finally run our first project in the Flutter. From the next video I will show you about the file and folder structure and more depth concerns. One more thing, when you run the project you maybe face some error or some unexpected things. This is totally fine in our programming life. It is a normal thing, so don't worry about it. If you not solve the problem by yourself, you can comment it out. I will try my best to solve that problem, and most of the solution you will find in the Stack Overflow and obviously in the StatGPT as well. So I will try my best to help you if you comment that about that problem. Okay, so guys, see you in the next video. I think you like this video. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe this channel because the new video is coming very soon in this channel. So see you in the next video. Have a nice day. Bye.